What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. Today's going to be a very different video. I've been wanting to make a video like this for a while, and I'm not going to lie, Jackson over on Jets Hub inspired me with that Dustin Buffalo video that he made a couple weeks ago at this point. Really good video. If you haven't already watched that, go check it out. And I wanted to make a video similar to that with a certain player in mind that has played for the Winnipeg Jets, and actually for this entire franchise his whole career. And if you haven't already figured it out who it is by the title, it's Bryan Little. So it's going to be more of a documentary type video today, talking about the career that was Bryan Little and his importance with the Winnipeg Jets, because it cannot be understated how important he was to the foundation that is Jets 2.0 and that built us into the team that we are today, along with our prospects. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It was really fun to make, and shout out to Bryan Little. Although Little was born in Edmonton, Alberta, he was raised in Cambridge, Ontario. Bryan Little would continue to develop his skills with the Winterhawks until the 2002-2003 season, where he tallied 20 goals, 15 assists, and 35 points in 40 games played before he went on to join the Brary Colts of the Ontario Hockey League. Little had been selected in the 3rd round, 50th overall in the 2003 OHL draft after a standout season with the Winterhawks. Bryan Little's OHL career is nothing short of exceptional. In his first season with the Brary Colts, he amassed 34 goals, 24 assists for 58 points in 64 games, which earned him the 2003-04 OHL Rookie of the Year. His sophomore season was not a slump in the slightest. His points improved to 36 goals, 32 assists for 68 points in 62 games. This earned him an 04-05 Eastern Conference OHL All-Star nod. In the 05-06 season, he became the Brary Colts team captain, and his game absolutely exploded. He put up in 64 games played a staggering 42 goals, 67 assists for 109 points. The year after that, 41 goals, 66 assists for 107 points in only 57 games played. Little set the Brary Colts' current club, and it still stands to this day, record for the most goals with the team and most points earned with the team. Without a doubt, an exceptional career in the OHL for Bryan Little before he even makes the jump to the AHL or the NHL, already making a significant impact in professional hockey. Little would go on to be drafted by the Atlanta Thrashers 12th overall in the 2006 NHL entry draft. After the Brary Colts were eliminated from the playoffs, he would go on to play 2 games with the Atlanta Thrashers AHL affiliated Chicago Wolves in the 2007 and 8 season. Little would play 48 games with the Atlanta Thrashers in his rookie year, tallying 6 goals, 10 assists for 16 points. This season saw him split time between the Wolves, putting up 9 goals and 16 assists in 25 games played down there, and that would be the last time Bryan Little saw any AHL action in his career. The next season, he tallied 31 goals, 20 assists for 51 points in 79 games played, placing him 4th on the team in points. And although Little's impact with the Atlanta Thrashers was undeniable, it was not enough to carry them to success. As we all know, the Atlanta Thrashers struggled to make the playoffs. Bryan Little never saw the playoffs in Atlanta and only got an opportunity to play in the playoffs way down the line, which we will get to eventually with the Winnipeg Jets. But at this point in his career, he was putting up nothing but strong numbers with a very, very bad team. In the 09-10 season, he put up in 79 games played, 13 goals, 21 assists, 34 points. 10-11 season, 76 games played, 18 goals, 30 assists, 48 points, and as things weren't working out in Atlanta, and then by the powers that be, the Winnipeg Jets got another opportunity in the NHL. 2011 saw the True North Sports and Entertainment Group buy the Atlanta Thrashers and relocate them into the Winnipeg Jets that we all know and love today, and with that came fresh new opportunity for Bryan Little. In August 2010, Little signed a 3-year, $7.15 million contract extension with Atlanta as a restricted free agent at that time. That deal carried over to Winnipeg, and that made him one of the bigger stars coming over. And all of these guys coming over, Little was a little bit more of the quiet guy, and before you knew it, Bryan Little was cemented himself within the Winnipeg Jets fandom. Before even playing a game for the Winnipeg Jets, Bryan Little had already earned the respect of a lot of fans by changing his number from number 10 to number 18 out of respect for Dale Hawerchuk, who had played for the original Winnipeg Jets, as we all know. And how can you not love a guy for doing that? Because that's just one of the most classiest moves in my opinion. And it just goes to show the type of mentality that Bryan Little had on and off the ice, and we will get to that as we get further along down this amazing career and underrated career that is Bryan Little. Bryan Little cemented himself early on in the return to Winnipeg as one of the fan favorite players. A quick skater and a dynamic playmaker made him one of the best stars on the team, especially on the Ladd Little Wheeler line. That was the first real all-star line the Jets had that dominated night in and night out. He wore an A at times on his jersey and was a leading example of professionalism and respect. This quality earned him the 2010-11 Dan Snyder Memorial Award, as well as the 13-14 Dan Snyder Memorial Award, which, if you don't know, is given to the player that best embodies perseverance, dedication, and hard work without the reward or recognition, so that his team and teammates may succeed. And although the Jets failed to make the playoffs, Little, no matter what, always still tallied solid numbers, even despite injuries at time and playing less games. The 11-12 season saw him putting up in 74 games played, 24 goals, 22 assists for 46 points. The 12-13 season brought him 48 games played, 7 goals, 25 assists for 32 points. And on July 22nd, 2013, Little and the Jets agreed to a 5-year, $23.5 million contract extension, avoiding arbitrations, and with this made him, and after this deal brought him a career year. The 2013-14 season saw him play 82 games played, 23 goals, 41 assists for 64 points, his career best in the NHL. And without a doubt, at this point in time, Bryan Little was, in my opinion, one of the most underrated players in the NHL. He was able to go out there and do everything an all-star was able to do, but do it quietly and just do it in a way that you wouldn't notice the little things in his game. And it brought him a lot of points, it brought his players a lot of points, and not only did it help him succeed, but you look around and you see the players that are on this team right now that at some point played with Bryan Little. They all took things from that. You know, Patrick Laine, obviously you can go back and point out the problems you could say that he had with Bryan Little, but Bryan Little and Patrick Laine at times had a lot of success. There were points where they had dry spells, but we're not going to get into that conversation right now. He played with Nikolai Ehlers, Mark Scheifele, the list goes on. Bryan Little was a plug in and out of the lineup everywhere with our prospects in the early seasons and was a huge part in developing them in and off the ice. Because let's be real, how good Bryan Little was as a person and as a hockey player affected a lot of the mentality we have on these guys, the loyalty they have to the organization. Look at Nikolai Ehlers, for example. He spent a lot of time with Bryan Little down there on that second line. He learned a lot from him, and you still see him carry that same type of respect that Bryan Little had in his game on and off the ice. The 14-15 season saw the Jets make it back to the playoffs for the first time, which also meant that this was the first time that Bryan Little ever got a chance to play in the NHL playoffs. And although the Jets were swept in 4 games by the Anaheim Ducks, and I will go on record to say that that series could have easily been a sweep the other way, going against the Anaheim Ducks. I don't care what anyone says. I still know Duck fans that respect that series for how close it was, but I digress. We're talking about Bryan Little here and not the absurdity that was that first round series way back when. But nonetheless, though, Bryan Little still got a chance to make an impact in the playoffs for the Jets, and although they were swept, he put up 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points in the 4 games there, and was a very crucial part of keeping the Jets alive at times and keeping those games as close as they were. Bryan Little really stepped up there, especially when you had Dustin Byfuglien struggling in the early parts of that series, arguably. Bryan Little was a key contributor in that series. I really remember him stepping up at times, making key plays, and that's just who Bryan Little was. Bryan Little always just found a way to make those little plays and, keep the game alive. After the 14-15 season, Bryan Little would start to have some injury problems, and those injury problems would haunt him for the rest of his career, unfortunately, and he would just continuously play at a high level despite missing large amounts of games at time, and this just goes to his credit about how underrated he was. The fact that he could always come in despite missing large periods of time, rehabbing big injuries, and come back and be effective. He always made crucial plays, like I've said time and time again, always found the ways to keep the games alive. The 2017-18 season was something magical, as we all know and love, and with that saw Bryan Little get his first real opportunity at the Stanley Cup and play really deep into the NHL playoffs, and he didn't disappoint. And the thing to remember too at this point is how willingly Bryan Little jumped up and down the lineup at this time, because as all of you know and love, we made the really sneaky great trade, underrated, probably best trade we've ever made arguably, in acquiring Paul Stastny at the deadline. And after we made that trade, it bumped Bryan Little down from our second line guy to playing on the third line, and even times at the fourth line when Adam Lowry really came up because of matchups. And Bryan Little still played at a high consistent level and elevated his line mates, and was a big reason why you had a lot of depth players making more plays. Brandon Tanevs, for example, stepping up because of the mentorship that they had with playing with guys at Little at the time and having them down there in the bottom 6. And just Little just continued to put up solid numbers as a crucial member. You go look at the numbers he put up leading up to that year, continuing to be a solid contributor for the Jets. The Jets would end up to lose in Game 5 to the Vegas Golden Knights in the Western Conference Final that year in the 2017-18 run. In 17 games played in the playoffs, Bryan Little would finish with only 1 goal, 5 assists for 6 points, but playing more of a reduced role, as I said before, because of the acquisition of Paul Stastny, and still making a very important impact. You cannot underestimate the importance of Bryan Little on those teams. That depth really mattered, and we saw it after he left and because of the injuries. We always, people don't really talk about it a lot because of how good the forwards are, but Bryan Little's his departure really did affect this team at times, in my opinion, and really sucked, honestly, when you go back and look at how it had to end. And definitely we are getting to that point, because after that miracle season of the 2017-18 and 18-19, the Jets tried to do it again. Little went on to put up 41 points, 15 goals, 26 assists, in 82 games played, and the Jets would face St. Louis in the first round of the playoffs, and we all know how this went. They lost in 6, playing very disappointing hockey, and this was the last time that Bryan Little would really ever play in the NHL playoffs. His final playoff appearance saw him put up 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points in those 6 games. Still making an impact, still scoring clutch goals at times, and just always being a presence until the very end. Little would then join the team for the 2019 season, but sustained a concussion during a preseason game against the Minnesota Wild, and he was cleared to play for the regular season, but not only did he, but only appeared in 7 games before he struck in the side of the head by a shot on November 5th. And that's when it really happened and ended for Bryan Little. That was the last time we saw Bryan Little, on November 5th, way back when in the 2019-20 season. And it's been that long, and we probably won't ever see him. He underwent surgery to repair his perforated eardrum, which is a major surgery that affected his vertigo. He was out entirely for the next season after that, and on March 2022, the Jets traded his contract to the Arizona Coyotes alongside Nathan Smitch. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for that one. I'm going to keep it in this video just because of how bad of a mispronunciation that was, and that's just my thing if you haven't figured it out already. But Nathan Smith, and a 4th round draft pick, and it is expected that Little will never play in the NHL again, just going on long-time injury reserve and Arizona paying out his contract. And then that's it. Bryan Little fades away. An underrated star that was always important, and extremely crucial to the development and success that is the Winnipeg Jets today, faded out because of injury. And it really sucks, because you go back now and you look at Bryan Little fading out to injury, and it's terrible. It's the exact opposite what you want to see from Bryan Little. He deserved all the recognition, all the praise for how much and how loyal he was. Like, without a doubt, in my opinion, as it stands right now, when you look at careers, Bryan Little had one of the best careers this franchise ever seen going back to Atlanta. Being a first-round draft pick, being as loyal as he was, putting up the numbers he was, and his OHL career, Bryan Little is, without a doubt, a franchise player, in my opinion, and a guy that should be up there in our top categories. When you go back and you look with what he's happened since his I guess early retirement, even though he hasn't retired yet, is thankfully in 2020 the Barrie Colts retired his number 18, and one day I hope I can see number 18 hanging alongside Dustin Byfuglien up there, because Dustin Byfuglien having to leave the way he did unceremoniously with injuries, Bryan Little the exact same way, getting 1 game in a terrible injury and never ever getting his chance to come back. And I heard all those rumors about maybe Bryan Little now, sometime, but then the trade happened and he's not coming back. And it just sucks to see 2 of some of the most important guys, arguably, outside of Blake Wheeler and I guess Andrew Ladd in there, and just to leave like that. These guys deserve to have a massive farewell game and have the fans on their feet and give them a standing ovation that they deserved, because these guys were the first stars of the franchise. They led this team for 10 years, basically, guys, almost. They were here for a long time. They led us when we were bad. They always were loyal. They stayed here through everything, and they developed the guys into what we are today. You wouldn't have Josh Morrissey playing the way he did if he didn't play with Dustin Byfuglien. I stand by that. You wouldn't have the composure that you would have from guys like Bryan Little playing up there in the top 6, developing these guys like Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, playing with these guys over time, showing them the ropes of the NHL, keeping professionalism, and more importantly, showing them how to be successful NHLers. Bryan Little, without a doubt, deserves to have his number in the Hall of Fame along with Dustin Byfuglien in the Jets Hall of Fame. I should just clarify for any of you guys freaking out there, because without a doubt, those three of Wheeler, Bryan Little, and Dustin Byfuglien are the foundation of what the Jets 2.0 stand on, without a doubt. You look at the fact that he's still number 2 in games played with the franchise, number 3 in assists, and number 4 in goals on that list, as well as points. A top 5 player in this franchise history, a first-round draft pick. Bryan Little, without a doubt, is a franchise best and one of the best Winnipeg Jets that we have ever had in the 2.0 era, and should not be forgotten. And it just sucks that his career ended the way it did, so unceremonially. He deserved to have a final game. I hope that one day he will be recognized in some way by this franchise along with Dustin Byfuglien, because they deserve it. They built this team in the early years when we were crap. They stayed when we were loyal, and they were loyal to us. And these guys deserve to be recognized because they were great players for us. It cannot be understated. The Jets that you know today wouldn't be the way they are if it wasn't for the guys that helped get them to where they were and helped get them to that early success. The crucial season that was getting to the playoffs that year when they were swept, how important that was for the development of the young guys. You look at the guys that were on that team, and it's important for them. That development is important, and Bryan Little is, without a doubt, a very, very important part of Jets 2.0 history and shouldn't be forgotten.